Hey everybody, BTO Pro here. I'm going to show you how we stole this site, and we really think you should too. So the site I'm talking about is Drupal at psu.edu. It's the new home for the Penn State Drupal community, and it looks like we put a ton of effort into it. I mean, it's got new reinvented blogs, it's got some nice bumper art that comes in there, it's fully responsive, it actually uses a font that's readable. That's a first. Um, it looks great, but we really didn't do a ton of work to get it, even though it looks like we did. And we'd like you to also not do a ton of work. So actually, where this site comes from is this site. It's odl.science.psu.edu. And one of our community members, Michael Collins, put a ton of effort into this site. And then I told him we didn't want to put a ton of effort into other sites we were going to make that look kind of similar. So you can see they've got their team represented, they've got a blog as well, and sure enough, it does that cool thing there. So how do we take it, and how can you take it more easily? So I detail in the blog post some of the projects we use to take it, but the main way you can get it very quickly is in Nittany Vagrant. So this is a new package we're working on that collectively as a Drupal users group. Basically, the goal is to kind of routinize and eliminate a lot of the stuff that we do, a lot of the boring stuff. So to see what that looks like, so run through, we do Vagrant up, and it basically gives you, well, a normal Vagrant box with a whole bunch of Drush plugins. It's pretty much what it is by default. Tells you an address to plug in. You got nittany.psudug.dev, and when you go there the first time, you'll get this, just a white screen saying, hey, you're almost done, but you're not. So what we do is we do Vagrant SSH to log in. The first time we log in, we're going to be asked a series of questions. So the first one is, would you like to set up SSH keys? Yeah, sure. We'll set it up with me. Sure. Whatever. Would you like to install Drupal? All right, so it gives you some feedback about this, random RSA art that it made for this fake server, so that's why I don't care if you see it. Hey, you can, then connect to servers this way, bind this VM for future provisioning, blah, blah, blah. Would you like to install Drupal? Yes. So at the moment, we've got four options of what you can do. You can either just install Drupal, boring. You can install Publicize, which will give you a site very similar to Drupal.psu.edu. You can install from a Git repo, and you can actually connect to and pull down a live site. And we're not going to do that in this screencast. I'll save that for another one. But we've actually been able to connect to Drupal.psu.edu, pull it down, sanitize it optionally, and then to disable modules that would prevent it from potentially running on our Vagrant box, things like APC, file cache, memcache, stuff like that. So for this, right now, we're going to run option 2. And this is going to connect to a couple repos, and it's going to snag Publicize, which is a distribution you can get from Drupal.org. So it's going to download Publicize, and you can see it's running through a makefile right now, getting all the dependencies. And then it's going to run a whole bunch of Drush recipes. So I'm going to cut it here in a second, and we'll pick back up on the other side when this is done going through everything. If we go back up through here as to what all this did, you see we got our dependencies in the make file, came down, grabbed a couple of projects that this said that it needed, like edit area, things like that. So it connects to some other repos, media element JS, backbone. It then also, once it's done installing the Publicize distribution, runs a cool Drush plugin called Cleanup, which takes out the files that you probably don't want people to see. Sets private file path to this, restarts Apache because it makes an Apache entry in the conf file. Okay, so the next thing, would you like to install the Nittany baseline? This is a list of community modules and themes that the Penn State Drupal Users Group recommends for most sites. So we'll say yes. What this is going to do is go and check out another repository that's psudug/Nittany. And Nittany used to be a full-on distribution that we've used to build sites a lot faster and kind of have a standard level that we build on top of, kind of a core above core approach to a distribution. What it is now is it's a Drush recipe. And so, actually 2 Drush recipes. And so we run through, snag that Drush recipe, and then execute it. And this is going to pull in all of the things that we as a community are saying we can more easily support systems that have these components in place. So as you can see everything flying by, that's things like views, that's things like context. We generally recommend context. I mean, people can use whatever they want, but we prefer context. Features, admin menu, jQuery update, advanced ag you can see flying by right now, entity cache, image info cache, HTTPRL, things for performance. And so it's going to assemble all of these and then configure them in a way that makes sense as a default. Okay, next recipe. Would you like SEO, right? So not all the sites we make have to deal with SEO, but we're going to say yes. And so what SEO does is it goes, chains through a drush recipe again that gets all these dependencies. So we've got SEO checklist, checklist API, page title, redirect, meta tags, XML sitemap, content optimizer, all these things that are really good if you're trying to improve the SEO of your site. So it goes and gets all those, enables a bunch of them, sets some sane defaults. Okay, the next step we run through, would you like a really great Wysiwyg editor? All right, so Drupal doesn't come with one out of the box. Common complaint. So we've got a accessibility-minded version of CK Editor 4X. You can see this gets a module called Textbook. It gets Wysiwyg API, Wysiwyg templates, the accessibility module, IMCE, a bunch of other things, properly configures them, so we got a sweet text editor out of the box. Would you like to put this work in version control? Yeah. All right, so this initializes a Git repo for this, throws everything into Git version control that we just set up. Next step, would you like to get the front-end development stack? And this is actually creation of Michael Potter, another one of our community members, but I'm going to let him run through that in a later screencast. Would you like to create accessibility reports via AccessLint? This step has been added by another member of our community. I'll let him run through that, Zane Sesnig. And would you like your site to be automatically backed up? Sure. So this is going to jump into the cron tab, author something there. Obviously, we have ASCII art because you have to have that. And you see, hey, you can run through this wizard again if you want, but otherwise, we're not going to tell you this again. You can log into the site now by going to this address, which is the address we had up, and admin. So if I jump back over to the address, now after all that work, I just refresh this page, and instead of the default screen, we see this. Right? So it's a very similar looking site structurally to Drupal.php.edu. It's what Drupal.php.edu was built on. So we can log in with admin, and we'll ignore my password reminders here. So we'll see that going through all those options, we've got a Drupal site built on the publicized distribution that has 112 modules enabled by default. So we've got a lot of stuff in here. You can notice we had admin menu on. We've got the admin menu drop-down thing that makes that hide away when you tap on the tilde key. We've got module finder, flex sliders installed for this, HTTPRL, meta tags, a bunch of stuff for SEO. You can see Quail API is turned on, XML sitemap. So I'm going to content. Let's add a new blog post. So we've got a nice looking text editor. Tag this. This is another cool little project here. Thing, right? Header tagline, do that. Brian O. We can go and upload image from our desktop here. This hierarchies thing for the header image. It's pushed in as the bumper art. And we'll hit save. You might notice at first this isn't here. It's because it's unpublished. Views is generating a lot of this stuff. Set this to published, and there we go. So we've got that hideous picture I just threw up there. And we've got these things filtering in here. I can go and look at the blog. It'll come through when it's uncached. I can go to the team, right? There's no one there for the team right now, so if I want to get me to show up on the team page, go to people, edit my admin account here. Let's see, we have full name, Brian O. The dude, okay, some bio info about me is gibberish. If you check make profile public, it'll show up there. Do upload profile picture, my Iron Man picture, as my son says. Go to my page, say, hey, it's me, cool. Go to the team page and see, hey, it's me, thing, which looks very similar to the other ones. So I encourage you to play around with Nittany Vagrant. We're trying to largely automate a lot of the things that none of us want to do, but we all have to.